Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I am excited to be with you. The subject of our inquiry is posture. Everybody has concerns about their posture. Posture is simple to define. It is the way that we carry ourselves, the way that we organize ourselves to move. Dr. Feldenkrais had some very original, brilliant ideas about posture. Today, I intend to be simply an introduction to me, an introduction to the subject, and an introduction to awareness through movement. I first met Dr. Feldenkrais in 1973 and studied with him for 10 years. And I have had a full-time private practice for the better part of 45 years. And I would say that 98% of the people who have come to see me in my private practice, that no matter whether they were troubled by neck pain, back pain, injuries, shoulder difficulties, etc., all of which some of you may identify with, at the most fundamental level, they had issues with their posture, their organization, and the way that that influenced how they moved. In the most general way, our posture influences us every moment. It influences our mood. It influences our movement. It influences the way that we stand. It influences our breathing. It influences the levels of tension, unnecessary effort that we feel internally in ourselves that plague most of us. And you will find that as our posture improves, that all of these things will be improved incrementally. So as our posture improves, our ability to move will improve. We'll move with a lightness and a simplicity that we couldn't before. Your mood will improve. The effect of our posture on our lives is ubiquitous. Awareness through movement, which is the group aspect of Dr. Feldenkrais's work as opposed to functional integration or hands-on work, it is not a form of exercise. You are to do the movements slowly, make them small, easy. We're not interested in stretching. We're not interested in achieving. And maybe even most importantly, we're not interested in succeeding. All of those things get in the way of your progress. They get in the way of your ability to turn your attention toward your sensations. In the turning of your attention toward your sensations, that is the tool that provides your brain with the information it needs in order to change and improve you. Just in these minutes that we'll be together today, I urge you to try and inhibit your desire to do better, your desire to get better, your desire to improve. And then you'll see, magically, you will improve. Today's lesson is going to involve us lying on our side. We're going to show you some drawings of the position that we'll be in for most of the lesson. You can see the left side of her head is lying on her arm, And thus her cervical spine, her neck, is in a line with the rest of her spine. That her neck is neither lower nor higher than the spine of her back. That's what we want to do. If you have trouble bringing your arm that you're lying on all the way up, then you can put a little pillow under your head, but that pillow must be thin enough that, again, you neither raise your head nor lower your head. Here, her head is dropped toward the floor. She has no support. The spine of her neck is lower than the spine of her back. And here, the spine of her neck is higher than the spine of the rest of herself. So the position of the neck, the orientation of the head, has a tremendous influence on the muscular tonus of your body. During half the lesson or so, we're going to be lying with our elbow behind us and with the hand resting on our lower ribs. If anything causes you the slightest bit of discomfort, you'll see that you can adjust by bringing your hand a little bit more towards your stomach. Or if you're comfortable, you can bring your hand a little further back than this fellow has. Having the elbow behind you like this will probably turn your head a little bit toward the ceiling. Please lie on your back. You can lie on a mat or a carpeted floor or rug, but lie on your back so that you'll be comfortable. And now take a moment to sense and feel ourselves. We are not interested to correct ourselves. We're not interested to fix ourselves. Only have something behind your head now if you feel that you absolutely need it. And lengthen your legs if that's comfortable for you. You can keep your knees bent if you want. Please just move your attention to your right leg and just sense your right foot, the direction of your right foot. In other words, if you were to draw a line out from your big toe, where would that line go? Would it go to the wall to the right of you? Would it go toward the ceiling or somewhere in between those 2 points? And just, you can breathe easily. You know, for a lot of people, when they pay attention to themselves, that's enough to hold their breath. So that can be part of our practice already, which is, can you turn your attention toward yourself while breathing easily, simply. And now you can feel your right foot, the sole of your right foot, your right heel, the top of your right foot. And then slowly you move your attention up from your foot. You feel there's a little space there behind your Achilles tendon where your foot is not touching the floor. And then you slowly move your attention up your right leg, sensing where you're touching the floor and where you're not touching the floor, just the difference. And alternating, you might say, between internal contact with yourself, interoceptive, and external contact, or exteroceptive, where your skin touches the floor, where your pants touch the floor. Internal, you can feel your musculature, maybe the weight of your bones, and just feel where you can relax your musculature. And then there's that little space behind your right knee. And then there's your right upper leg, which of course the musculature is very big there. Some very strong muscles. And then you go up a little higher and you feel the right side of your pelvis. And now let's do the same thing from your left leg. Your left foot, the sole of your left foot. Remember that line out from the big toe of your left foot and the top of the foot. Just again, feeling where you can reduce any unnecessary effort. Of course, you're supported by the floor. There's no need to tense yourself or hold yourself. You're being held quite adequately, quite nicely by the floor. And then slowly moving your attention up your leg while breathing easily and sensing that difference between your internal sensation and external. Feeling the temperature of your leg behind your left knee and your left thigh, your leg bone, your femur that runs all the way from the top of your knee all the way to your hip joint. It's by far the longest bone in our body. And now the left side of your pelvis. Now, compare one side of the back of your pelvis with the other, and you'll find something interesting, that one side of your pelvis is maybe pressing more into the floor than the other, or less into the floor, or one side feels wider or narrower than the other. And now move your attention to your lower back, where you can feel from the top of your pelvis emerges your spine. And again, as I said earlier, we're not interested in correcting ourselves. We have a non-corrective approach. You'll see that everything you need to know to improve yourself, improve your posture, you know, that information is in your brain, is in the brain of each of you, each of us. So there's not something that you're lacking. It's that you're doing too much of something. And you'll see that the less we do, the more you'll improve. And now you've moved your attention up your spine slowly, just feeling where your vertebrae are touching the floor and where they're not. Maybe some places you feel as if you can identify one vertebra, and other places it feels like a group of vertebrae, and that's just fine. And then you find in the middle of your back, there's a place where your spine is really pressing very clearly towards the floor. And then you move up from there and you feel the pressure of your spine on the floor changes. It's reduced until you come to the base of your neck, where you feel, oh, my spine is beginning to leave the floor. And there's a little space there behind your neck until you feel how the back of your skull is lying on the floor. But between your skull and your upper back, many of those vertebrae are probably not touching the floor. And of course, that's normal. That's as it should be. And your right shoulder blade, just observing the contact with the floor of your right shoulder blade. And your left shoulder blade. Maybe you feel one shoulder blade is lying more in contact with the floor than the other, or less in contact, or maybe one shoulder blade feels more forward than the other. In the beginning, these are subtle things to feel, but you'll find after you've been doing only a few awareness through movement lessons, these distinctions will be more vivid for you, more obvious to you. And now, from your right shoulder emerges your right arm, and you move your attention to your right elbow, and then from your elbow to your right wrist. And then you can feel your 5 fingers and the way that they're touching or not touching the floor, the relationship of your palm to the floor. And now do the same thing from your left shoulder to your left elbow, from your left elbow down to your left wrist, and then feel again the contact of your fingers with the floor. Is the palm of your hand facing the ceiling or facing the floor? And is there a difference between the contact with the floor of one hand compared to the other? For most people, there is. And now put your hands on your lower abdomen, and for just a moment, feel that simple movement of how your abdomen is expanding and then receding, just in a simple way, not in some way that is intentional or contrived or following some methodology that you studied, but simply your natural breathing in this moment. And now, slowly, please lie on your left side, and remember that if you absolutely need some padding between your head and the floor, that's fine, as long as it doesn't raise the level of your head. Otherwise, you lie your left ear on your left arm, and your left palm is facing the ceiling. And draw up your knees so your knees are more or less perpendicular to your pelvis. That's right. And your lower legs are parallel to your spine. And stand your right hand on the floor, not too close to your chest, but not too far away. And now just slowly, just turn your head an inch or two to the right. Just simple. You can feel that, of course, that the movement of turning your head to the right is encumbered by the rest of yourself. So just turn your head to the right the tiny bit that feels easy, comfortable. You turn your head a little bit to the right, and then you allow your head to come back, and then you rest. So that's another thing about doing awareness through movement, is that we don't do the movements in a repetitive way. Quite the opposite. Our viewpoint is that the rests between the movements are actually as important as the movements themselves. So we want to separate each movement from the one before and the one after. So it means you have a complete rest between each movement. You turn your head to the right a little bit, as if you wanted to see the ceiling. That's right. Just a tiny bit. Your nose turns. Stop. And just slowly, very slowly, lift your right knee away from your left knee. It can be a small movement. Your right foot stays on top of your left foot, and you just slowly, while sensing yourself. One of Dr. Feldenkrais's books is called Awareness Through Movement. What he's attempting to highlight is the idea that as you lift the knee, at the same time you are sensing and feeling yourself. And this is what provides the information for your brain, more than the movement itself. So you just slowly, as you exhale, lift your right knee away from your left knee. That's right, just slowly. And you can feel, of course, that the right side of your pelvis goes a little bit backwards as you do that. If you don't feel that, you can put your right hand on your pelvis, and you'll feel that each time you lift your right knee that little bit, your right hip goes backwards. As you exhale, only doing what's easy. We're not wanting to strive. That's right. Stand your right hand on the floor, and now slowly turn your head to the right again, as we did at the very beginning, and see if something feels the tiniest bit easier, the tiniest bit lighter. That's all. That's all we're looking for. And you'll see that our whole self will take on a very light feeling. All of our movement will become lighter. All right. Now, slowly, as you turn your head just that tiny bit to the right, lift your right knee also. So you do those two movements, and you do them together as you exhale, just doing what's comfortable, easy, simple, resting between each movement. Again, not trying to achieve anything. It's not a situation where the person who does the biggest movement will get the biggest change. Quite the opposite. And it's not a situation where the person who does the most movements will have the most change. Not at all. Good. Now, let your right knee rest on top of your left, and just see for a moment if that movement of turning your head to the right just simply is somehow a little easier. Maybe your eyes see a little bit more towards the ceiling. And please rest on your back. And if you're comfortable stretching out your legs, please stretch out your legs. And just observe. Do you sense a difference between the feeling of the right side of yourself and the left side of yourself? You feel, is one side of yourself lying a little closer to the floor than the other? Does one side of yourself feel a little longer in your imagination? you'll see that change can happen very quickly, very easily. You have a brain which is a good brain, a resilient brain, a brain that has beautiful neuroplastic potential, meaning the ability to change, to rewire. And it doesn't take much. Please lie on your right side, your right ear on your right arm, or if you have something under your head, then your arm is in front of you, the palm to the ceiling, and draw up your knees so your knees are more or less perpendicular to your pelvis, your lower legs parallel to your spine, and stand your left hand in front of yourself. That's right. And now slowly, just make that initial movement of turning your head slightly to the left as if you wanted to look toward the ceiling. You just turn your head a little bit to the left, and then you let your head come back to the neutral and you rest. So I'll say it again, we rest between each movement. So you turn your head a little bit and then you let it return. And when you return, we could say you've come back to the neutral, to the where we started, and you just rest there for a moment. We're not holding anything. Again, your left hand is standing on the floor. This is not about holding. It's not about stretching. It's not about doing the most that you can do. I know that that may be different than what you're used to. From the point of view of awareness through movement, the most effective route to change is not through the musculature, but is through the brain, your brain. All right, stop for a moment. And just now, simply, you lift your left knee away from the right knee, lifting the knee only the little bit that's easy, comfortable, and then let it come back, and you rest your left leg. You want to create a distinction, a sensory distinction between doing and not doing. Your left foot just rests on top of your right foot. It's not a matter of lifting your whole leg. It's lifting your knee. But only what's easy. The reason it's important to create a distinction between not doing and doing is that doing involves muscular contraction. If you have difficulty with that distinction, it's because there's a holding of your musculature all the time. Even when you think you're resting, you're still doing work. Just lift the knee, what's easy. It's not a matter of how far. The moment you feel that there's any resistance, you let the knee go back and you rest and feel how the left side of your pelvis now is going backwards, isn't it? You can put your left hand on your left hip and you'll feel that. In other words, that it isn't just a matter of the knee moving. You feel that? Slowly, you want to do it slowly. The reason we do the movement slowly is so that your brain has time. If you do the movement quickly, your brain doesn't have the time to improve what you're doing. All right, just put your left hand on the floor and just slowly turn your head to the left and feel something is a little easier. If you can feel that when you turn your head to the left, if you follow that movement down your spine, you can feel it goes all the way to your pelvis. And now slowly, slowly, lift your left knee away from your right knee and turn your head and eyes toward the ceiling. So you just, in a simple way, you combine these two movements. Just slowly. It's not a matter of going further. It's not a matter of doing the most that you can do. It's actually a matter of giving up wanting to make the movement big. Your compulsion to make the movement larger is actually getting in the way of your improvement. That's it. But you can feel that now the entire length of your spine is turning a little bit. You see if you can feel that. That as your nose goes a little bit toward the ceiling and your left knee lifts, the entirety of your spine is turning. That's right. Feel where you can reduce the effort, where you can quiet yourself. And now slowly leave your left knee on top of your right knee and just turn your head and eyes to the left and feel, how is that compared to when we started? That's it. And lie on your back and rest. And just observe if something feels a little different about the way the left side of yourself is lying on the floor. The left side of your lower back, your left shoulder. Something feels longer now about the left side of yourself. It's important that we understand that the project here is one of creating the conditions or optimizing the conditions in which your brain can learn. It's not about the movement, and that's a mistake that I can see some of you are making. You are thinking that the important thing here is the movement, of how big it is, how strong it is, how quick it is. We're creating a distinction between learning and doing. Often in doing, we're wanting to do something quickly, or we're wanting to do it strongly, or we're wanting to do the best we can do. But that's not what we're doing. Our interest here is in, as I say it again, in creating the conditions in which our brain can learn, can change, in which that inherent plasticity that you have, that inherent neuroplasticity that you have, can actually work on your behalf. All right, please lie on your left side again. And this time, lie your right arm on the right side of yourself. Instead of your right hand standing on the floor, your right arm is lying on your right side, and your fingers are probably draped off of your pelvis. Your arm is in a more or less straight line. That's right. Your wrist is probably resting on your pelvis, on your right side of your pelvis. That's right. Your knees are drawn up. And now slowly move your right shoulder blade backwards a little bit. That's right. Just slowly move your right shoulder blade backwards, and then you return to the neutral and you rest for a moment. And then you take the shoulder back slowly, simply, not a big movement, not a strong movement. Rather, it's light and easy. And you feel, even within the context of that easy movement, you feel, where can you reduce the effort? Where can you do less? It doesn't matter how expert you think you are. There's always room for letting go of unnecessary effort. Maybe it's you're doing something in your stomach. See if you can relax your abdomen. Maybe you're doing something with your jaw, keeping your jaw clenched. Maybe you can relax your neck a little. That's right. Your chest can be a little softer. You use your attention to sense and feel yourself and to sense where you can do less. Less, not more. And you'll see that the improvement from doing less is going to have a dramatic change on your posture. Because our posture gets deformed by that unnecessary effort. Our posture gets deformed by that unnecessary effort, and that unnecessary effort or contraction of our musculature pulls us down, pulls us forward. In other words, compresses us. And now slowly a few times, turn your head and eyes a little bit toward the ceiling as you take your right shoulder blade backwards. And you can feel that turning your head and eyes toward the ceiling, the right shoulder blade goes a little more back. That's right. Not lifting your head, but turning your head. You just turn your head a little bit. You'll see that just the beginning of turning your head is enough to create a difference. Try this. Try turning your head and eyes to the left when you take your right shoulder blade a little backwards. Can you feel? That's not the same, is it? Slowly. You take your head and eyes to the left, in other words, toward the floor. You feel that inhibits, doesn't it? Inhibits the movement of your shoulder. It's not your arm. Your arm's not doing any work. Good. Now come back to the neutral and just rest there for a moment. And now slowly move your right shoulder blade a little bit forward. That's right. Slowly, a little bit forward. As you exhale, as you feel where you can reduce the effort, as you soften your chest, That's right. And now a little forward and a little backwards. Very small, a little forward and a little backwards, but without holding your breath. That's it. Feeling how it's easy to turn your head to the right when your shoulder blade goes backwards. And it's easier to turn your head to the left when your shoulder blade goes forward. That's right. Now, stand your right hand on the floor again, as we did, and go ahead and lift your right knee and turn your head and eyes toward the ceiling and see if something feels a little lighter, a little easier. That's right. And rest on your back. Rest on your back and just turn your attention toward your contact with the floor. Feel how your right shoulder blade is resting on the floor compared to your left. Is there a difference? Slowly lie on your right side. That's right. And draw up your knees. Of course, just what's comfortable. And your right ear lying on your right arm, your right palm to the ceiling. And now lie your left arm on your left side. Again, your left wrist is probably lying on your pelvis, and your fingers are probably hanging off of your pelvis or the left side of your tush. And now just slowly move your left shoulder blade backwards a little. Just simply, and then let your left shoulder blade return and you rest with that idea, as we said earlier, that you're wanting to separate each movement. The reason is so that you can organize your attention as if you're doing the movement for the very first time. Each movement and each moment is unique. It's not a matter of repetition. It's not a matter of repeating the same thing. It's a matter of using your attention in a different way each time. And in order to do that, you need to separate one movement from the next. That's right. As you exhale, and your orientation is towards sensing and feeling where you can do less. Really, that's all we care about. That's the primary thing we care about. Because it's the unnecessary effort, in fact, that's creating the difficulty. Whether the difficulty is in my feelings about myself, or the difficulty is in my posture, the difficulty is in my shoulder. It's the unnecessary effort that contributes to the difficulty. And now slowly begin to turn your head and eyes a little bit to the left. Just the initial turning. But you'll feel that by joining the movement of your eyes to the left with the movement of your shoulder blade to the left, you can feel, oh, that's a little easier. That somehow keeping the eyes oriented forward was inhibiting the movement of the shoulder. That's right. Now, stop for a moment. Slowly bring your left shoulder blade forward. That's right. Good. Bring your left shoulder blade a little bit forward. And now allow your head and eyes to turn a little bit. That's right. In much the same way as we said earlier that the orientation of our head and neck have a tremendous influence on the muscular tonus of the rest of our body. So do the eyes. You can feel here that if you allow your eyes to turn to the right, that's it, that somehow the movement of your shoulder blade becomes a little lighter. And that's because, in fact, we evolved for the hands, arms, shoulders to follow the eyes, our chest to follow our eyes. Good. Now, still with your left arm lying on your left side, go ahead and just move your left shoulder blade a little backwards and a little forward, and a little backwards and a little forward. That's it. Good. And please stop. And please lie on your back. You'll find that with each variation, there is a little bit more improvement. And with each variation, there's a change in your contact with the floor. And in fact, we would find that with each variation, there's a little change in the wiring in our brain. There's no reason for life to be more difficult than it needs to be. No reason for it to be more difficult than it already is. And that unnecessary muscular effort burdens you unnecessarily. Please lie on your left side. And now take a moment to remember that one drawing that we looked at where the right hand was resting on the lower ribs and the right elbow was behind the torso, behind. That's right. So you rest your hand there and you can feel the weight of your elbow behind your chest. That's it. And now slowly, just lift your right elbow toward the ceiling. Just a little bit, just a small movement. You lift your right elbow toward the ceiling. Only what's easy. And you can feel, that's right, that when you do that, when you lift your right elbow away from the floor and toward the ceiling, while your hand remains on your chest, you can feel that you turn or you roll a little bit to the left. Your hand is resting the whole time, resting on your lower ribs. Your left hand, that's right. And now from there, you lift your elbow. That's it. And let it return. Let it return. You'll see something interesting, that if you just do what's easy and you lift your right elbow toward the ceiling and then let it return, you'll find that each time your elbow goes back to the beginning position, it actually is the tiniest bit closer to the floor. And you can feel that as you lift your right shoulder blade toward the ceiling, your hand is staying, you're moving your right elbow to the left. But directionally, it's toward the ceiling, or you're bringing your right elbow forward, but your hand is staying right there on your lower ribs. And you can feel that your shoulder blade is rolling forward. Your right shoulder blade is rolling forward. And so turn your eyes a few times, your head and eyes to the left. That's it. As you bring your elbow forward, but your hand stays right where it is. And then you'll find if you do the opposite, in other words, you turn your head and eyes to the right when you bring your right elbow toward this. That's right. Oh, you feel how restricted the movement of the elbow is. That's it. You're bringing the elbow forward. That's good. And now go ahead and let your head and eyes turn to the left again. That's it. Good. Now, stand your right hand on the floor the way we did at the beginning. And now, you remember the third movement that we did was turning our head and eyes to the right while we lifted our right knee away from our left knee. So you go ahead and do that same movement that we did at the beginning. And you feel, is it the same? Or is something lighter? Is something easier? Go slowly, not one and then the other, but try and do both at the same time. Good. And please lie on your back. Again, just observe the right side of yourself. In the 8-week class series, we'll do lots of different lessons. We will approach the improvement of posture from many, many different points of view. We could describe posture or the difficulty with posture as having a kind of general quality, which is the problem or the predicament of forwardness. That most of us find ourselves forward of our vertical axes. Our head is forward, our neck is pitched forward and down, you could say. And that, of course, represents that unnecessary contraction, which pulls us forward and pulls us down. Okay, please lie on your right side. And now, again, put your left hand, so your left hand is on your lower ribs, that's right, and your elbow is behind you. You can feel the weight of your elbow behind you. And you just very simply lift your left elbow a little bit away from the floor, as if you were directing, that's right, and then let it return. And if you just do what's easy, you'll see that it's paradoxical. There's a paradoxical effect, which is that as you lift your shoulder blade away from the floor, it actually becomes easier for your elbow to rest near to the floor between movements. You feel how interesting that is? You lift your elbow, you keep your left hand on your chest, and you lift your elbow, just what's easy. And of course, you can feel your shoulder blade is moving as well. That's right. And then when you you drop your elbow back to where the neutral was, your elbow is actually a little more behind you, a little closer to the floor. That's it. And now go ahead and a couple of times turn your head and eyes to the right, the non-habitual way. In other words, you turn your eyes and head to the right. That's it. As your elbow comes forward, turn your head and eyes to the right as your elbow comes forward. Turn your eyes and your nose to the right as your elbow comes forward. Okay, and now go ahead and let your head and eyes turn to the left when your elbow goes back and to the right when your elbow comes forward. Turn your head and eye, that's it. That's it. Good, good. And now stand your left hand on the floor. And now slowly do that early movement of lifting your left knee and turning your head and eyes to the left. And see if something feels completely different about turning your head and lifting your knee as if it's being directed to face the ceiling. That's right. And please lie on your back. Just take a moment to observe your contact with the floor, the movement of your lower abdomen as you inhale and exhale. And now, much of what we've been doing, we've been moving our shoulder blades. We've been moving our shoulder blades a little forward and a little backwards. Now, just slowly, you move your right shoulder blade backwards towards the floor. Just a few times. Just backwards, and then you let go. And then as you exhale, you just make a small, gentle movement, moving your right shoulder blade backwards. And you can feel that, in fact, your arm, your upper arm moves backwards a little bit. The right side of your chest gets a little wider, not because you do anything, but simply because your shoulder blade is moving backwards towards the floor. And now do the same thing with your left shoulder blade. Take your left shoulder blade backwards, just simply. Of course, one may feel easier or less easy than the other. That's right. And now see if you can move both shoulder blades backwards at the same time, resting between each movement, but you move both shoulder blades backwards. And see if you can feel that when you do that, the front of your chest gets wider. The front of your chest it moves a little forward, doesn't it? You feel that? That when you move both shoulder blades backwards, your sternum or your breastbone moves forward. That's it. Now, please bend your knees and slowly now, as you move both shoulder blades backwards towards the floor. See if you can move your lower back a little bit away from the floor by tilting your pelvis away from your head. So you move both shoulder blades backwards, and then you tilt your pelvis downwards. And that lifts your lower back a little bit away from the floor. That's right. That's it. As you exhale, so you're kind of arching your lower back as if you wanted to let a little guinea pig run behind your lower back. But at the same time, you push both shoulder blades backwards and look up with your eyes. Look upwards with your eyes. That's it. That's it. All right. Now, very slowly, please roll to your side and slowly come to sitting and to standing. Take your time. Take your time. Now, when you come to standing, just stay there for a moment. Just stay there. Your phone will be fine. That's right. Now, just observe. Do you feel a little taller? Do you feel as if the top of your head is a little closer to the ceiling? Does your chest feel a little wider? That's right. Does the back of your head feel a little more back than when we started? That's right. And now walk around for a moment and see if what you might call your posture feels a little different. You just observe yourself. Where's the top of your head? The feeling is your sternum feel a little, your breastbone feel a little forward or up, a little higher. Hope to see you at the classes that we'll be doing. As I said, we'll be approaching posture from many, many different points of view and giving you extra tools that you can use between classes and little ditties that you can use, little 2-minute tricks. Thank you. And stay safe and take care of everyone.